We're live! Hello,
Woo!
world. Hello. This is so strange. I've not done a live stream in a little while, and I've definitely never done one before where I'm like Skyping with someone half a world away in the middle of it.
But I'm delighted to see you anyway, darling.
I'm very glad. Hello, everybody who's waiting. My name is Will Watt.
Hello.
And I think you probably know who I am if you're here. And this is my friend Pippa, who you probably don't know, but you're going to. That's all very exciting. How are you feeling, Pip?
Hi, I'm good. I'm just, I'm a little bit worried because I can hear you twice, which is lovely. Can you hear that?
Oh, yeah. I think you need to mute me in StreamYard, or not mute the YouTube conversation, the YouTube video, if you've got it open.
I do. How did you tell? Is that better?
It's
sorry,
much
I'm not
better.
very tech savvy, Will. You know that.
It's all right. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here with my infinite wisdom. Hello, BB Jing 23. How are you doing? Welcome to the stream. So I guess we'll wait a few seconds for. We've already got 6 people watching. This is nuts.
Oh, hello, 6 people.
Hello, 6 people. So this is all very exciting. Jules Natural. Hey, Jules. Hey, Candice. Oh my goodness. All of the old faces. 7 people watching. This is amazing. So I'm here, and I don't have very easy access to YouTube. But obviously, Pippa is the author, so she's going to be moderating all your comments. Julie's here. Hello, Julie. How are you feeling? Yeah. I feel like I'm talking an awful lot, and it's not about me, is it? It's about you.
Oh,
So you've written a book, and we know each other, don't we? Already outside of book writing and YouTube streams.
Oh, for many years, many beautiful, beautiful years. Will. When was it though? When was it? Was it?
I think
it was at the ball. Was it?
It
the
was,
ball?
yeah. 2012, I think, in Lark Hill, I want to say.
Yes. Oh my gosh, a lifetime ago, but it's flown by, obviously. And we met through, I want to say, my sister, but as soon as she introduced us, she was sort of out of the picture. We were like, that's it, we're friends now.
Right, friends on a mission. I remember my sister was there as well, and she was like, well, the 2 of you met, and I didn't see you for 4 hours, apart from occasional glimpses of you thick as thieves sneaking around and making mischief. And I was like, me? Make mischief? That doesn't sound like me at all.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, good times. Oh, I can't wait. I'd love to see you again. I really would. You have to, after all of this palaver is over, you must come across and stay with me.
Absolutely. Try and stop me. So we've got 13 people watching now. Unlucky for some, but very lucky for us. So I say, should we chat a little bit about what we're doing here, what Hufton Deane is, who you are?
Absolutely. But yeah, as I said, we've known each other for donkey's years. And one of the things that sort of bound us together was the fact we're both from an area of England called the West Country, which is, it's beautiful. It's rolling hills, wild rivers, forests.
You had like a very slight hint of a West Country accent there.
And so I had an idea. I'm obviously an avid reader. I had an idea that I wanted to write a book of my own. And so I went to my guru, Will, and said, what do you think? And he got really excited. And I can't thank you enough, Will, by the way, for all of your expertise and all of your help.
Of course.
Yeah, so I've written this book, and actually really cool. I think it's cool. I asked Will to name a certain character for me.
You did, yeah. You were like, you've helped me so much. Do you want to name a character in the book? And I was like, yes, I have a name in mind.
Tell me about her.
So I have this fan. She's pretty cool. She's always singing my praises. She's my number one fan. And eventually, I'm going to buy her a yacht. I've got my eyes on the Royal Yacht Britannia, but I don't know. We'll think about it. But for now, as like a prelude to that, I figured I'd give her a character in a book instead.
Yeah. So there's a character that I really like writing, and is Ariadna, shortened to Addie.
Do you see in the comments there, before you even said it, Jules was like, Ari!
Yes, brilliant. Sorry, I'm not reading those at the same time. I will jump on to the comments as soon as Will starts reading. But at the moment, I'm massively distracted by his beautiful face, those chiseled cheekbones.
I mean...
Yeah, so she is for that lovely Ari. We've actually, in the book, her nickname is Addie because we just need a little bit of a separation, but definitely it's a character that we love, and so I made sure to write her with all of the love that I felt from Will about this woman, who I've yet to meet in person, but hopefully one day I will meet her too. So the book is about a young woman who moves down from London back to the West Country, and her settling into her life there, finding her feet, so I say, starting a new chapter of her life, and helping a few people out along the way. The chapter that I would like Will to read to you this evening is from about halfway through the book. And I chose it because, as we said, like Will and I met each other at a ball, at an officers' ball, which if you're from the States, you might not have something quite so similar. But in the UK, we have these beautiful country estates that are owned by the military. And so if you're ever so lucky, you get invited to a ball at one. And so the chapter that I'm asking Will to read is when our main character, our heroine, who's called Alex, she's off to London to see her sister, who's called Viola, after she's basically a bit pissed off at her lottery. But it's resulted in a surprise invitation to a dinner party up at St. James's Palace. So if anyone doesn't know what St. James's Palace is, it's basically the first royal palace of England. It's even higher ranking than Buckingham Palace. And yeah, so she's going to that with her sister, and their dates are a couple of very dashing officers, of course, Theo and Max. And so we're going to find them now getting ready at Viola's house. So I hope that sets the scene. Is that all good?
Perfect. Amazing. Should we tell them about the giveaway after this? Because there is a giveaway.
Now you've said it, Will. Now you've said it. Yes. So I'm going to give away 5 signed copies of the book once it's released. And to get your hands on one, what I'd really like you to do is, if you can add me as a friend on Facebook, there's a link in the description. And then what I'd like is for you to comment your favourite, specifically British English word down there. So to give you an example, my favourite word is chap. Okay, chap, C-H-A-P. And we use it to describe basically any man who's just a really all-round good bloke. And the plural is chaps, which I find funny because I'm pretty sure Americans think chaps is kind of like a bumless pair of trousers, right? So that's the kind of example. What's yours, Will? Do you have a good word?
My favourite British word? That's a good question. I'll tell you what, subfusk. Subfusk is my favourite British word. So at Oxford University, where I worked for a little bit, when you go and take your exams, you have to wear like a uniform. And it kind of looks like a business suit, but with some like flappy bits that kind of fall down the sides, like a weird kind of half cloak streamer thing. And it's called the subfusk. S-U-B-F-U-S-C. Subfusk. And if you Google it, it's great. And it's like really, like they take it very seriously. If you show up to an exam and you're not in appropriate subfusk, you may not sit the exam and you will forfeit your degree.
Will, I have to interrupt you. Tammy has just put, and I mean that's up there. That's a really strong contender straight away. But much as I love seeing on here, please go on to Facebook and write it on there.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
Wonderful.
So yeah, please
Anyway,
link in the description below. Add Pippa on Facebook. She's very friendly. She'll accept. And yeah, leave a comment with your subfusks and your wankers and your chaps.
bugger. Someone's written bugger. Oh, this is brilliant.
Oh my goodness,
Anyway,
I love it.
I can talk for England, obviously. I'm
Correct.
going to switch off my mic now and let the lovely William take it away. But I am going to start responding to all your comments. Is that all right, Will?
Amazing. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
See you in a bit. So hello. Oh, actually, I was going to get rid of Pippa there, but if I do that, then I'm not going to be able to hear her. So I'm going to add her back in, and she's muted herself. That's great. All right. How are you doing? So I'd like to note that this character is from the main character. This chapter is from the main character Alex's perspective, so you'll have to imagine that I am a wonderful, beautiful, talented, charismatic woman, which shouldn't be too much of a stretch, let's be honest. So we stood in Viola's bright, airy bedroom in our evening wear, preparing for the night ahead. Not only had she fitted in a blow dry for herself earlier that afternoon, but also a proper haircut for me at incredibly short notice with, she assured me, her second favourite hairdresser. As her first was based in a small suburb of Florence, that couldn't be helped. Our dresses were long, elegant, and eye-catching, yet totally demure and tasteful. Of course, my sister stockpiled evening gowns for moments just like this, and she looked like a goddess. The gold fabric appearing to choose to hang off her in solidarity with her effortless grace rather than being meticulously cut to fit. She'd had it made for an award ceremony, worthwhile as she'd won in every category for which she was nominated, and she plucked it from her wardrobe with a carefree, "Oh, this will do," in the same way I often justified leaving the house to nip to the shop in pajamas on the basis that at least I wasn't naked. As exotic dinners in palaces hadn't been on my agenda, I'd rather been banking on sitting around in my joggers with a tub of ice cream, rewatching the BBC version of Pride and Prejudice. I hadn't packed a formal gown. So it was up to Vi like pie. It was up to Viola to pick me out a dress from her expansive collection. She decided on a backless emerald green number. I would have liked a choice, but knowing her exquisite taste and absolute decisiveness, I would have just been wasting time, as I would have eventually come back to the one she picked out. Sure enough, when I put it on, I felt radiant. I embodied every glittering cut emerald and felt unworldly in my elegance. I hardly recognized the woman in the mirror. Viola magicked champagne from somewhere, and as we stood, squished in together using the same mirror, totally unnecessarily, as she had so many, to do our makeup, we sipped it, the effervescence of the sweet drink buoying our excitement for the evening ahead. She was halfway through her foundation when she paused, glanced up at the mirror, and hugged me side on, still looking at our reflections. "I'm so happy you are here. I love you," she blurted out. I told her I loved her too and returned her hug before we cheersed each other and carried on with our war paint. After all her terse and non-emotional bluntness, this burst of affection may have seemed strange. However, our family never said "I love you" as we were growing up. The love was very much implied, but never openly pronounced. Not long after our parents' divorce, we decided that such a lack of verbal emotion was weird and started hugging each other and saying it out loud. At first, it felt, if anything, weirder, unpracticed and clunky. But now, in any situation, however high my sister was flying, whatever face she was portraying, she would always openly tell me she loved me, and I her. Despite all our arguments growing up, she was now one of my best friends, and we became a common fixture at balls and parties across the country. Although the moniker the King Sisters, which was how we had become collectively known, was something that Viola still winced at, on the basis that no one will ever top the Mitfords. Just before 7 o'clock, we stepped out of the cab outside the palace where Theo met us, took us through security, and walked us across the courtyard towards the mess. I internalized the excitement I was feeling, but couldn't help trying to point out subtly to my sister the signs reserving parking spaces for different members of the royal family. She gave me her best "shut up and be cool" face, and shortly afterwards, we climbed the stairs to a well-proportioned room laid for dinner. 7 other people were milling around drinking, half of them in the bright red wool jackets, trimmed with gold, of the infantry's officers' mess kit. The others were civilians, evidently the officers' dates for the evening, and I inwardly appreciated being on my sister's team. The civvy women looked lovely. They were smiley and kind-looking, but one wasn't wearing a full-length gown, more a tea dress, however beautiful, and the other's dress was a shade of pink that clashed horribly with the officers' jackets. I looked at Viola and Theo. Vi like pie, Vi like pie. I looked at Viola and Theo. The gold brocade of it on his cuffs and on the pips of his shoulders went beautifully and effortlessly with my sister's dress. She stood gazing up at him adoringly as though it was all totally unplanned, her being here, wearing what she was wearing. However, I had been there only an hour before as she pondered on whether her sapphire ring would be dark enough to pick up the blue of his trousers, or whether she should just stick with the we talked about this earlier on and I can't pronounce it. Labradorite? Labradorite. It's a gemstone. I had to look it up. Pippa's much more clever than I am. Theo smiled back down at her before squeezing her arm lightly and excusing himself to go and interrupt a conversation and bring me one of the dashing figures in red. Max's build reminded me of a sculpture of Hermes I had once seen. Strong, though lithe and boyish, and with a face to match, ready to smile at any moment, and with dark brown eyes full of mischief. I could see easily how a reputation as a lady killer might come about. I felt my face blush slightly as I was introduced, and I glanced back to Viola only to see her smiling with her eyebrows raised. I could practically hear her thinking, "I told you so," at me. My date was everything I ever imagined an officer would be, even down to their hair, carefully coiffed forward in almost a Regency style, matching the mess kit perfectly. Whilst I'm sure British officers learn many things at Sandhurst, I'm confident a lot of it is how to chat up women and make good banter. I laughed more than I had in months, and I found myself hanging in equal measure from Max's words and arm. Rather sweetly, upon finding out I had moved to Devon, and my sister having basically informed everyone I had no social life there, Max insisted on putting me in touch with an ex-artillery officer in the area by the name of Rory, who was, by all accounts, a top chap and a real gent. He was meant to have been at the dinner with us that night, but work and darling Ariadne had needed him. I assumed Ariadne was a controlling wife, and these descriptions of him put me in mind of a blustery old major who was most definitely under the thumb. During the pre-dinner cocktails, the 8 of us milled around the room, making polite and not so polite, though friendly, conversation with each other. Some aspects of the high-ceilinged room were so steeped in history that the hair on the back of my neck stood up. Next to a portrait of a less important gentleman with the most amazing moustache, Blackadder's General Melchett perhaps, there was a portrait of Queen Victoria over one of the 2 fireplaces positioned at either end of the room. Unlike how so many people would think of her now, dressed in mourning for her beloved Albert, she was dressed in soft blues with a brooch on her chest. Just below the portrait, there was a small display case, all glass and mahogany, containing the very brooch painted above and worn by Her Majesty Queen Victoria herself. The chaps around the table told me that the lowest ranking officer had to take it to bed with them at night whilst on duty, as it was so valuable as to be uninsurable. So if there was a fire, their only job was to get it out of the building safely. A tall, skinny man saluted sarcastically as the words "lowest ranking officer" were said, and the other officers sniggered. Theo explained, "We're all captains, but we've officially demoted Captain Betterley to lieutenant for the night, as he left his mess jacket in a Mackie D's last week, and then had to track down the girl who had stolen it and wrestle it from her cold, dead hands." The tall officer slung his arm around the woman in the pink dress protectively and pulled her closer to him and said, "You can't blame me for wanting to get into my uniform. Can't blame her for wanting to get into my uniform. Absolute essence. The woman playfully pushed him away with a smile, then blew him a kiss. The dining table glittered with silver, and we raised a glass to the Queen before sitting down to eat, served by a butler who was evidently ex-forces himself, his tattoos faintly visible through his crisp white shirt. The officers chatted with him warmly and appreciated the quick, dry humour in his responses. I don't really remember what we ate as the conversations across the table were so stimulating and the wine flowed so smoothly. It was desperately hard not to give all my attention to my date. Though quieter and less flamboyant than the other officers, it worked for me, as I paid real attention to every word Max said, and I always leant in closely in order to not miss a thing. Our thighs pressed consciously against one another, and our eyes caught one another at jokes. To me, it was a done deal. We didn't even really need to speak. A series of shared glances and smiles had flushed my cheeks, and had I been wearing knickers, they would have been wet. Not wearing knickers is vastly underappreciated by the British populace. My sister had taught me not to wear them with evening gowns, as they ruin the line of a dress. In return, I had taught her not to wear them at any occasion you might be nervous of, such as disciplinaries, job interviews, and for her, award shows. My infallible logic was, for instance, if someone was mean to you, you could nod along with them and internally think, yeah, you smug prick, but you don't know my fanny's out. It's awfully hard to take insults personally when you have your own private joke with yourself. At one point between courses, a conversation at the other end of the table led to Theo standing up and retrieving an object from the dresser to the side of the dining table. The other conversations stopped as we all looked to him, and with a flourish, he presented a horse's hoof. Napoleon's favourite charger, Marengo, fearless and beautiful, two of the three similarities I share with a warhorse. A theatrical wink followed. A theatrical wink? I smiled at my own joke, and Theo continued. This is his hoof, one of only 5 in existence. He paused, grinning as we all took a moment to understand the joke. Basically, we captured it, and when it died, we did the only proper thing and turned one of its trotters, and he flicked up a silver lid on the hoof's top side, into a snuff box. He took a pinch and snorted it in front of us. I thought he would sneeze or his eyes would water or something, but he wrinkled his nose a little, then offered the box around. I'd never tried snuff. I never really wanted to, but I was damned if I was going to pass up the opportunity to lose my snuff virginity from the hoof of Napoleon's charger. I took the hoof in my left hand and cautiously sniffed the ground tobacco. It surprised me by smelling of mint, but it also had the warmth of tobacco notes in it. Although it didn't smell bad, I really wasn't sure about huffing some of it up my nose, and my thumb and forefinger hesitated to take a pinch for myself. Then Max smiled at me, all twinkly eyes and perfect teeth, and guided my hand into the box, pressing down on my middle finger gently to make me take a pinch with it and my thumb instead of my forefinger. I've always been a sucker for doing silly things to impress my crushes, and there was no way I was going to stop the habit of a lifetime now. Smiling back, our eyes laughing together at my apprehension, I closed my other nostril and inhaled sharply. The smell of menthol tore through my head, though not unpleasantly, and the whole table cheered. I swallowed a couple of times and refused to sneeze before passing the hoof along to Max, who snorted a pinch carelessly and said, "Bloody hell, Theo, showing off all the gems of this room before I've had a chance. But I claim the next one. It might be too risque for the delicate ladies present." We all laughed. "But may I present to you the greatest work of art in the entire palace of St. James's? And as it is just about the most important palace in the Commonwealth, it could well be the greatest collaborative work of art in the country." And with that, my angelic-faced, innocent-seeming, sweet, smiling host pulled open a wooden folding screen affixed to the wall at one end. It seemed to be covered in decoupage, and I got up to inspect it closer, feeling as though I'd missed a joke. The other guests followed me, and we all gasped in mock shock and laughter when we realized all the pictures were of naked women. Some drawings from generations ago, some a lot more modern, all pasted over each other to make a rich tapestry of tits. Pretty much the last thing I would have expected to find here tonight. Max was grinning at our wonder and continued, "Also, I have absolutely no explanation for this next curio, but look what I found earlier," before opening the drawer of the desk by the window and handing me a wodge of papers. I glanced down at them. It seemed to be a manuscript. I sat back in my chair as I read a random passage aloud, my voice clear and crisp. I took pride in my public speaking ability and was confident in myself. However, suddenly I faltered and looked over at Max, now seated, hands linked behind head, legs spread arrogantly wide, and absolutely crying with laughter. "It's a porno," I explained. "It's teachers and students shagging in a school cupboard." "No," said Viola disbelievingly, and took it from me to skim read for herself before cracking up. Despite shaking with laughter, Max went around the table, politely topping up our drinks as the final course came in. Upon sitting heavily back in the chair beside me, my new favourite asked me quickly if the manuscript had shocked me. I responded that sadly nothing had truly shocked me since 1998 when the Spice Girls had broken up. Max snorted in appreciation, and the meal continued with even more raucous chat than before. We had been chatting for some time after dinner, drinking more, dancing with the officers who could lead, and generally becoming steadily sillier and sillier, when all at once the officers left the room together. Theo was the last one out, and he carefully shut the door behind him whilst looking back at us, finger on his lips, mouthing, "Shh." We shared confused looks with each other, but patiently waited, looking curiously at the door. After a few moments, one of the other women made as if to go and investigate, but Viola King, ruler by name and by nature, stopped her with a look. We all sat down on the chairs facing the door and listened intently for any clues. Not 2 minutes had passed when the Beatles song "Come Together" started playing at full volume. The door burst open, and the four officers strutted in time with the music. And the four officers strutted in time with the music, now wearing their huge floor-length grey greatcoats, peaked caps low over their eyes. At first, amidst much giggling from us, they pouted and pointed their toes and kicked their naked legs from between the flaps of their coats. Then they stood with their backs to us, wiggling seductively and glancing over their shoulders lasciviously. Slowly, gradually, they let their coats slip down so that we could see their bare shoulders, faintly scarred from carrying their heavy backs tabbing. I was pretty impressed how they had all evidently managed to get undressed from their high-collared waistcoats and high-waisted wool trousers in the corridor so quickly. It was pretty evident they were naked underneath. At least some brief choreography had definitely been discussed previously. It must have been quite a day at work. They pulled the coats back up to their necks again and popped the collars too. Then, holding them in their fists under their chins and shrugging their shoulders, they turned to face us all at once as the Beatles commanded that we should all come together. They flung their coats wide open and revealed everything. Everything was incredible and hilarious. They were all wearing frilly pink lingerie, complete with waist-cinching corsets and matching suspender belts, though with no suspenders. As soon as they had let their coats fall to the floor, they shimmied over to us, each officer beelining to their date. Max came to me with a show of bravado and confidence, but underneath I could see a little hint of nerves, despite us having eye-fucked each other all evening. After that performance, however tongue-in-cheek, I knew nothing would stop me getting those frilly knickers off. Normally, I let shy people chase me a bit to give them the satisfaction of catching me, of winning. But as I felt those gorgeous legs straddle me, I leant into Max's ear and whispered very clearly, "Have you ever fucked in a palace?" And that is our first chapter. I haven't been
Well,
keeping up.
I was going to say, it's just brilliant. I just loved hearing you. Oh my gosh. Wow.
It's so much fun to read. I think because I know you as well, and I can hear you say it, like I can hear the way that you read it or the way that you would say it. And so it makes it all the more of a joy and certainly a lot more funny. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I'm loving all these comments. I could see it out of the corner of my eye, like the whole time. It was like ping, 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 ping. It was amazing.
We had a big chat
So what
about
have
your
people thought?
accents. So I think I'm going to have to start writing. I think someone's going to, I don't know, a language school or something at some point just to make you do lots of different accents.
Sounds great to me. I can see Julie in the comments saying, I have to hear you read my Sir Anthony. So if you don't already know, Julie Roberts writes amazing, Julia Brannan, the pen name, writes amazing historical fiction along the same sort of vein as Outlander. And one of the main characters is this incredible guy who kind of like has this undercover life. So he's this Scottish rough clan leader, but then he leads a double life as this foppish, ridiculous dude called Sir Anthony, who everyone thinks is a bit of a homosexual, but who's actually quite the Lothario and a bit of a dude, and he's terribly fun to narrate. He has a great accent. Yeah, it's amazing.
There's a character in this book called Tom, who he is Scottish, and as soon as I started speaking to Will about this whole book idea I had, and I said, look, Will, I love your Scottish accent. Please, can I make one of the characters Scottish? Just because it's such a joy listening to you do it.
Oh my goodness, I remember that as well. And I was like, yeah, if you want, fill your boots, love a challenge, throw it at me.
Absolutely. But going back to the book, sorry, in that chapter, briefly, character called, and without sort of giving too much away, I just wanted to say that like Rory is another narrator in the book. So I kind of wrote him to contrast with Alex. So Alex is very impulsive, but he's a lot more thoughtful. But I find him really charming in a sort of, again, Mr. Darcy sort of way. But this next chapter that I've asked Will to read is written through his eyes. And we had a little chat about which ones of Rory's chapters to go through. And this one, I sort of eventually decided on because it talks about a railway. And the railway is important in the community of Hufton Deane, but it's also important for the series because it kind of, it's hard to describe the West Country, but it's very spread out. If you've got a railway line coming through your village, that's the sort of lifeblood to the village.
I think I'd describe it as the smallest big place in the world. Like it's a very small geographical location, but like it seems very big when you're there. You don't have access to, you know, it's not like somewhere like London where you can hop on a tube and be on the other side of the, on the other side of the city in half an hour. It's like rambling and wild, and there's a big national park in the middle of the county that kind of is a national park. So yeah, not the easiest to navigate.
No, but they've got this train line that runs through Hufton Deane and it connects it to other villages. So obviously I've written this as a series. I'm not just going to stay in Hufton Deane. And it's going to go along this train line through this beautiful countryside. So it's written, it's also going to introduce to you guys another super important character that I absolutely adore. So listen out for Lady P. But yeah, so this is the balance. So do you want to take it away, Will?
Yeah, totally. And I want to point out as well before I do that I think this chapter was well chosen. I think it's one of my favorites because one of the things that really excited me when you first came to me and were like, hey, so I wrote a book, is when you were talking to me about it, you expressed that you were like, you know what, I've read some romance books, and I love the romance books are becoming kind of like coming out of the closet at the moment, and more people are getting into them, and they're more, you know, they're not as like risque and scary as people thought they were. But you were like, I really want to present like a bit of an upturned kind of narrative kind of thing. You were like, I really want to show that it's not all about wilting women and strong men, and it can be a bit more nuanced than that.
Well, if you met some of the amazing women in my life, then well, I didn't want them to hang me for not writing something like that.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's really cool, and I think that the overall, like that last chapter as well, like that was one of the first chapters that you showed me, because you were like, hey, this is, you know, something that should be like a familiar aesthetic to you, and what was really, really cool about it is that it was showing kind of like a much more free and open and like approach to sex, basically. Like, this is someone who is empowered to be able to like go to a social event and have casual sex, which is, I think, something that, like, you know, regardless of where you feel about the morals of that kind of thing, like, it's something that like men feel that they can do, but women don't always. And I think that that's kind of mirrored in a lot of romance books. And it was really cool to read something where I'm like, oh wow, like she's in charge. She's the one who's like part of the narrative. She's not just waiting for a man to happen to her. She's like, cool, I'm gonna go and fill my boots. You know. But anyway, I'll shut up now. I'll get off my soapbox and
I love it. I love it, Will. And I just thank you so much for doing this. Like, it's such a joy hearing you speak, and kind of surreal, because obviously I narrate other authors that I idolize, and then for you to be reading what
it's a strange feeling, isn't it?
Anyway,
well, thank you. All right, so without further ado, this is Rory. The lazy chunting of the first train of the day rolling into Hufton Deane from Clifton St Mary woke me, as always, at 7:27 a.m. sharp. Although it was technically connected to the great national rail network that ran the length and breadth of Britain, Hufton Deane was the first stop on a small offshoot that was serviced solely by a small private fleet of 2 quaint diesel locomotives. Coming down on the train from London meant changing at Clifton St Mary, the little station by the sea, and waiting for whichever of the squat green trains would show up next. The journey from one end of the line to the other took exactly 1 hour and 12 minutes, which made for a very unusual schedule that could be hard for outsiders to get used to. But unlike the rest of the country, the Penheligon line could always be counted on to run exactly to its scheduled time. Because of this, locals had developed a kind of sixth sense and would know the times when it'd be quicker to walk or take a taxi than to wait for a train that might not arrive for another 72 minutes. Despite its irregular timetable, though, the Penheligon line really was the lifeblood of the local community. It fostered a unique sense of extended clanship that brought together people from a host of small towns across the county's vast, scraggy inland moors. Oh, my iPad's gone all weird. Who would otherwise be incredibly isolated. And it was all thanks to Lady Penheligon herself. The line, formerly known as the Michaelmas Line, had been due to be shut down as part of the vast privatization of the railways in the early 90s. The number of passengers using the line was, in comparison to other parts of the country, fairly low, and on paper seemed not to be worth the cost of operation. Lady P had caught wind of these plans early on, and knowing the impact a closure would have on the local communities, swooped on in and bought the whole thing, adding stipulations that no other rail traffic be permitted on the line, and that management of the entire operation be handed over to a drill sergeant-esque gentleman from a few towns over, who had run the entire operation with ruthless efficiency ever since. Between them, Lady P and the sergeant, a nickname that had stuck, despite him never actually having been a member of the armed forces, had come up with a brilliant policy stating that residents of any town or village along the Penheligon line who lived in the area for 9 months or more per year were to be granted free travel end to end. They'd also made waves when they'd convinced the local National Rail Authority to allow Penheligon pass holders to travel to and from Exeter, the closest major city on the main line from Clifton St Mary, meaning that Young people from across the valley had free, open access to one of the country's finest universities, and more importantly to them, a whole host of shops and a thriving student nightlife scene. The bulk of the line's profits came from summer tourists and the rich, big city dwelling owners of the many holiday homes dotted around the county, who paid a handsome premium in the form of a second home tax. The free travel for residents was contingent, however, on a few very important rules. Headphones must never be worn, gum must not be chewed, phones must remain in pockets, and feet were to remain firmly on the floor. Thank you very much. Most importantly, though, it was expected that free pass holders be polite, friendly, and approachable whilst travelling. A big, colourful sign hung in each carriage with the words, "Have a chat," emblazoned upon it in bright letters. A small chalkboard underneath was updated daily in a beautiful cursive with converspiration, a single word or phrase that could catalyse a conversation with a stranger. Usually taken from something funny or interesting in the daily news, the converspiration boards were well utilised, particularly on the weekday morning commuter trains, where lively conversations between retired local residents and local school-aged children and teenagers were commonplace. The penalty for falling short of the rules was a month-long suspension of free travel benefits. A second offence would increase the ban to 2 months, and so on. And as teenagers were the most likely to break the rules, the ban extended to all members of a travelling group, even if only one person was at fault. Although seemingly draconian, this helped to make sure that the system was largely self-policed. Nobody wanted to lose their lifeline to the outside world and the big city lights, and it meant that this little pocket of the West Country had gained a reputation for friendliness generally only bestowed upon Northerners. The Penheligon line reflected everything I admired most about Lady P. Both she and the little railway were entirely dependable and would show up when and where they promised, regardless of how convenient that would be for you. And they both deftly and elegantly supported the local community with very little fuss or fanfare. Over the years, I'd honed my morning routine to a fine art, largely thanks to the diesel-powered alarm clock on the tracks outside, sending powerful vibrations up through the foundations of our house and making the little window by my head shake. 33 minutes may seem like a restrictive time window, but it gave me all the time I needed to commit all my morning ablutions in order to be ready to leave the house at 8 a.m. Even though the majority of my days were spent working from home with no strict schedule to guide me, I liked to get myself up and ready to face the day by 8. It was a source of pride at this point, and a known and noted tactic to lessen the chances that my demon, my black dog, might come sniffing. As I set off through the morning mist toward Penheligon, a solitary bell chiming the hour, I found myself thinking about that black dog of mine. It had been some time since it had really reared its head, for which I was thankful, but it was always present, looking at me, waiting for me to slip. Some days it'd be closer and others far in the distance. I liked thinking of it as a dog. A dog could be trained, and even if I still couldn't bring myself to call it what it was, I'd gained significant ground over the past year, and I was making progress, keeping my black dog as far from me as possible, a dot on the horizon most days. I had reclaimed a part of myself that I hadn't even realized I'd lost. Black dogs are funny like that. They can be so ever-present, so perpetual that they cloud out absolutely everything positive or bright or happy. They sneak into your psyche and redecorate in dusty grey and apathetic off-white. They hang thick, drab curtains on any window, any portal of possibility. There's no sense trying to pull back the drapes, they growl. It's just as dark and dingy outside. At first, when I'd started going to see Dr. Judith Walker, I'd thought all this flowery, metaphorical bullshit was, well, just that, bullshit. I detested the way people talked about their emotional struggles in such vague, flowery language. It felt hokey, like horoscopes or tea leaves, facile, illogical. I'd been closed up so tight, letting my dog run amok, and it took Judith a long time to break through to me meaningfully, to get me to do more than just scowl. But eventually, she'd coaxed me out of my shell a little. She'd shown me that sometimes large, abstract concepts need to be passed on through metaphor or through expressive language. She'd shown me that being expressive about how I felt isn't shameful, it's a power. Our most treasured moments in life come from expression, from sharing. I'd resisted the idea at first. It made me feel silly and uncomfortable. But the more Judith had chipped away at my defenses, the more I had begun to see the validity in it. I found myself noticing the beauty of the trees in the town square one day and smiling slightly. I may have described them as beautiful before. I may have agreed with someone else describing them as beautiful. But I wouldn't have felt it, not really. It would have been another one of those things that you say because it's expected or because you want to fill time in a conversation. But no, this time it all came from me. I was struck by the simple, sublime beauty of a tree, and I allowed myself to marvel in it. I felt the sense memory of childhood wonder creep back in, that feeling of everything being new and exciting, of everything holding some promise, some special significance that means nothing at all but everything at once. I reached the crossroads by St. Mary's and turned right onto the main road towards the hall. The driveway started almost as soon as the village ended and curved up towards the huge house. It had once been very grand, with its avenue of great oaks cutting through rolling lawns on either side. But after the compulsory purchase of some local meadowland and forest to make way for a new motorway in the 1980s had led to the displacement of much of the local animal and plant life, Lady P had instructed that the land to the far end of the driveway, out past the sweeping hook, be repurposed as a vast wildflower meadow to provide sanctuary to the local species whose ecosystem had been decimated. The driveway itself and the rolling inner lawns that swooped down, capability brown style, toward the hall were kept expertly manicured by the staff of the house. But the meadow, out on the other side, leading to the vast oak forest beyond, was a true wilderness. Some of the locals, particularly the older ones who remembered the hall in its heyday, were sad to see the driveway's grandeur lost. But there was a wilder, more rambling feel about it now, something almost enchanted. Past the line of massive oaks to my left, tall grasses and ferns grew, before being consumed by the thick trees that started in an abrupt straight line a few hundred feet back on the northern side. This morning, the place felt almost expectant, a hush seeming to have fallen all around, my footsteps ringing out strangely through the mist. As the last of the terraced houses disappeared into the cloud behind me, I caught sight of a tiny movement up ahead through a tangle of branches. I drew closer carefully, slowing my pace, my body tensing and my focus narrowing. There, behind a feral clump of bird of paradise flowers, a small roe deer was stooping to drink from what had formerly been a little fish pond. I held my breath as I gazed at the creature, its large black eyes reflecting the dappled light like polished obsidian, its long ears twitching. There were still a few small patches of the slate-grey winter coat that this species grew to fend off the cold, and I could still see the small tail-like tush on its rump, telling me that this was a female. But the rest of the doe's coat was a deep, rusty red, seeming to almost shine in the ghostly half-light. As I stood enraptured, another small twitch brought my attention up, and I saw another of the creatures standing off behind the first, and then another off to the right, and another less than 6 feet away from me, partially hidden against the bark of a great tree. I stepped back with a start, my foot flailing for purchase on the uneven ground, and in slow motion felt myself staggering backwards, toppling over slowly but inevitably. I grabbed at the air as I fell and felt my hands close around a gnarled tree branch. The dry, knotted wood bent with me, but snapped with a loud cracking sound just as my bum hit the ground. At once, there was movement everywhere as dozens of pairs of ears pricked up all around me. I had been entirely surrounded by a herd of the creatures and hadn't even noticed, the mist and the wild grasses providing excellent camouflage. I sat, mouth wide open, for half a second as I took in the enormity of this group I had stumbled across. It felt like a magic trick. One moment I'd been completely alone, but now I was surrounded by furtive life and energy. And then the whole herd moved swiftly as one, like a shoal of fish, springing and darting toward the tree line of the forest. I had no time to react, still agape, sat clumsily in the dirt. I felt the energy of a dozen tight bodies buzzing close by me like hummingbirds. Then, just as suddenly as they had been there, they were gone again. The frantic rustling all around dissipating, leaving almost no sign that the herd had ever been there at all. I stood slowly to my feet in the strange, pregnant silence. My daze finally cleared, and I stood up and dusted off my clothes, glancing around again as I did for any other surprises that might be waiting for me in the wilderness. Invigorated from the adrenaline coursing through my body, I shakily continued up the driveway towards the hall. I reached the great front door 5 minutes later and bashed the large lion's head knocker against its plate 3 times. The door opened immediately to reveal Lady P in plaid jodhpurs, knee-high tan leather boots, and a tweed jacket and a white blouse fastened tight at the neck with an ornate jeweled pin in the shape of an owl. Lovely morning for a walk around the estate, wouldn't you say? Misty days like this always remind me of stories of fairies and pixies in the back garden. You know, I'm still sure I might find a naughty sprite hiding in the knot of a tree one of these days. It's only a matter of time. Come in, come in. She waved me enthusiastically through the door. You've come at the perfect moment. We're doing a tasting. Elizabeth is busy in the kitchen testing a few recipes for a dinner I'm throwing. There's all sorts. Oh, that's very kind, but Addie's already started on lunch, I stammered, reeling from the tiny tornado in front of me. Oh, how is Ariadne? You know, you mustn't let her spoil all your fun. I'll have Elizabeth pot some crumble into a Tupperware for you to take back for pudding. Well, I can hardly say no to that. Thank you, I said, walking further into the house. That was when she noticed the aftermath of my interaction with the deer. Oh gosh, what has happened to you? You're absolutely caked in mud. It's all over you. Come along. I went to little Mrs. Havisham after George died and didn't throw away all of his clothes. Between that and my son's cast-offs, we're bound to find something that fits. Whatever you do, please don't sit on any of the upholstered chairs until we've found you something. She held me with an intense pinpoint gaze for a moment before breaking into a glowing smile. Despite her mile-a-minute pace and her fearless habit of getting deep into the cracks of everyone's lives, Lillian Penheligon was the most endearing person I knew. I watched as she whisked off down the hallway on the hunt for some clean clothes, chattering about the house as she went, and grinned to myself before running to catch up. And I'm done.
Oh, Will, that was wonderful. I love your voice for Lady P.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's perfect. Absolutely perfect. And now I really want some crumble, though.
Oh, mate, can you imagine? Thing is, what's your favourite flavour, though?
Oh, it's got to be blackberry. Blackberry and apple.
Yeah? Blackberry and apple, it's a classic combo. Classic combo. I am partial to a little bit of a rhubarb crumble myself.
Oh, cheeky. Yeah.
All right, cheeky, especially with a little bit of lemon on it, maybe some raspberries too. Go wild, a tangy delight.
I can't do lemon. Grandma, try crumble. No, I'm a simple creature.
Oh no! Do you not like it, or are you like allergic or something?
No, I just think that if something is perfect as it is, for instance, rhubarb crumble, pure and simple, why would you need?
But you know, also variety is the spice of life, Pip. Variety is the spice of life.
Point. And you're not helping me with this desire to eat crumble that's now overcoming me. My cup of tea is not quite cutting it anymore.
Oh no, nor is mine. I wonder if I could like. I wonder if there's anywhere in New York that could deliver me like do a contact delivery for me with a nice rhubarb crumble. Do you have rhubarb in America? I feel like it's something that I've never seen over here. Oh, sorry, Julie, I knew there was a reason I liked you.
Rhubarb, yeah, absolutely. No, but this is the
I
trouble.
Said, do they have rhubarb in America? Oh, yes, apparently. Well, that's only because I've never had an invitation. So really, you're the one to blame for that.
I'm so sorry. Honestly, when to England, just let me know, and I will pick some blackberries specially for you, and we'll make crumble.
Amazing. Well, all of you who are watching can bear witness to that fact, and I'm going to hold you to that.
Oh, they can all come too. They can all come too. We can have a grand crumbly adventure.
Amazing. A crumbly adventure sounds great. So I think that's all we've got, isn't it?
I cannot express my thanks. Like, it was just wonderful hearing the characters come to life, and especially like you as Rory. It's so perfect. But yeah, so I just wanted to say, obviously this was a lovely, wonderful reading. Thank you so much. But if you want to start reading the book yourself from the start, I've put up the prologue and the first 4 chapters on my website, and that's free. And then because we're all in lockdown, I'm going to put up a couple of chapters every week during April. So hopefully you can get your teeth into it and learn more about the characters.
And I know I was talking to you about it earlier on, but we don't have the official title yet, only that it's going to be the Cider Country series. Is that right?
Yes, Insider. There's a little word play there, William. I don't know if you can quite catch on.
Cider Country. Oh yeah, I think I've got it. That's so naughty. Oh my goodness.
I'm kind of hoping that it's sneaky.
I think so. I've known that it's called Cider Country for a while, and I don't think I ever picked up on that. So wow.
Makes me smile though.
But so you were saying that you're going to be doing a couple of other giveaways. You're doing like a cover selection and like a title announcement in the coming weeks as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll do that. Obviously, I'll put it up on the old Facebook page.
Lovely.
But basically, I'm sure you guys can tell, and I'm very open about this. This is my first book, and I really value all of your opinions in every aspect. And so that's why when it comes to things like the cover and things like that, I am going to put them up, and I really want your sort of feedback and your input to which ones you like best.
Amazing. Really, that's very cool. It feels very like, I don't know, it feels very grassroots, like getting the community involved. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Oh, good. That's awesome. So
good. So as Pippa just said, everything is up on her website. Well, not everything. The first 4 chapters and the prologue are up on her website right now, which is www.philippafoxx.com.
Yep. Fox with 2 X's.
Fox with 2 X's. Like Foxy.
Yeah.
Love it. So you can go over there and read that now. And they're pretty cool. That's the one we meet Alex. Do we meet Tom in the first couple of chapters? I think we
do. So Tom is the one with the lovely Scottish, and he is he's Scottish, but he's half Maori.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's amazing. And I think
I think this is I really like.
Oh, you cut out a bit. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, sorry, West Country, not good internet. Right. Got electricity last week, to be honest.
This is how we truly know that Pippa is out in the middle of nowhere in the West Country. You need a local Lady Penhaligon to get you sorted out with a train line to get you back to humanity.
Don't even. I think a carrier pigeon might be more reliable than this.
Maybe smoke signals. We can do the next live stream with smoke signals. I'll translate for you. I'm very proficient. Semaphore.
I'll start training.
Amazing.
But yes.
But yeah, if you've not already, philippafoxx.com.
I was going to say you can also on there. I've put a sign up, so you can get an alert. So as soon as I post them, then you'll get an alert. So you come back, you can sign up to our page.
Love an email sign up. They're great. Amazing. And I think you were saying as well that you've got a Facebook group that you're going to open up for people to like discuss stuff as the new chapters come out and on the fly. And I know because I'm already a member, I think I'm the only member as well as like one of your editors or something. So I'm waiting. Lady P's Posse. I'd forgotten it was called that. Lady
Yeah,
P's
well, I
Posse.
love her.
So she's pretty amazing. Is she based on anyone that you know?
She's based on many, many ladies that I've met throughout my life, and none of whom I should cross.
Wow. Woo. Amazing. Oh, we're getting love in the comments. Candy says, "No way, that name is fab." And Tammy says, "We love it when authors engage with their fans." I love it so too. I love it. I love it too.
I'm just absolutely thrilled you're all here. I'm so touched. I truly am.
It was
Especially you, of course, Will.
It was funny earlier on because you were like, you were quite nervous. We were both quite nervous, to be fair, because I still get nervous, even though I do these things a bit. And we were chatting on the stream, and you were like, well, probably no one's going to show up, so it won't be. I won't be too nervous because no one will be there, so we'll just be like talking into the. And I was like, nah, I think we're going to have some people there. I think some people are going to show up. We're going to have some fans from the word go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, you are at the font of all knowledge in these things, Will. But yeah, I was very nervous. But you've all been so kind to me. Thank you so, so much. It's really inspired me just to keep writing as well.
Abigail Baker in the comments says, "I love that you are writing a woman you shouldn't cross." I wonder if Abigail Baker herself is a woman that I shouldn't cross. But this has been amazing fun, and thank you so much. I've had a bit of a weird 2 weeks, and I've not been very well. I was showing some symptoms last week, and I've been kind of like lethargic and recovering for the time ever since. And then there's been some like less than lovely things happening in my social circle here in New York, because there's a lot of people that are being affected here by what's going on one way or another. And it was really nice to come on a live stream and to be buoyed by everyone's enthusiasm, and this is I think the first piece of voice acting I've done in about 2 weeks, because I've just not been able to work. And I was kind of dreading it. I was texting one of my other producers earlier on, and I was like, I'm doing, and I was telling him earlier on, giving him an update about how I was feeling. And I was like, I'm doing this live stream earlier on, didn't want to cancel on my author friend, and I'm really nervous. I'm hoping that I'm going to be okay. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to sit it out and like not, freak out or anything, or have a little cry in front of everyone. And I've managed, and I'm actually now feeling really I'm feeling really, really energized from this. It's been really fun hanging out. And
thank you so much for making the effort. I should have sent some cough drops or something. Please do keep yourself safe, babe.
Thank you. You too. You're not immune, even if you are in the middle of nowhere.
I know, and I've got plenty of tea bags though, so I've no reason to leave the house.
Really, a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine. So I live with another British woman called Sarah, and she has a friend. Our friend, really, but who I was introduced to through Sarah, called Rhiannon, who's also British. 3 Brits. It's getting complicated. And Sarah was having a bit of a lame day yesterday, and so we're all kind of feeling it. And Rhiannon got wind of this, and she came over last night. She showed up at on our doorstep, knocked on the door, and we opened it. And we were like, "What are you doing here?" And she was like, "I saw you guys were feeling not your best, and so I brought you a care package." And it was 4 different packages of tea of various blends. So there was PG Tips, Yorkshire tea.
Oh, Yorkshire.
I love a bit of Yorkshire tea. That's my go-to.
Yorkshire tea.
Oh, treat yourself. What was the other one? PG Tips, Yorkshire, something else, Twinings maybe, and then a whole selection of like 7 different Fortnum and Mason flavors. Don't know where she managed to get hold of them in New York City. And by the way, side note, if you don't know what Fortnum and Mason's is, it is the most bougie shopping grocery store in the world. It's in London, in Piccadilly, near the Royal. It's amazing. It's one of those places that you walk in and you don't want to touch anything because it's probably more expensive than you can afford. Like, they have biscuits that they sell in these biscuit tins that have a built-in music box, and they have 100 million gazillion different types of tea and 100 million gazillion different types of coffee. And you can go and talk to someone about the coffee, and like they're all wearing white gloves, and they'll like pour it out for you in these like big glass containers, and they'll tell you all about like what's in each one and like what it's good for and what their suggested brewing temperature is and all of that good stuff. And yeah, it's a great place. and their teas are to die for. They are like the gold standard of tea in England. I
You
feel
could
like
spend
Lady
a whole day
P's
there.
someone. Huh?
We could spend a whole day there easily.
Oh, easily. We again wouldn't buy anything, can't afford it. But I could spend a whole day like pressing my nose up against the window, you know, and drooling over all the deliciousness. I feel like Lady P is absolutely someone who probably does her weekly shop at Fortnum and Mason.
I was going to say she definitely, you know, gets a hamper just sent down.
Yes.
Just, you know,
A care
week.
package delivered once a week with her
caviar.
with her gold leaf marmalade and, you know, her
Do they
music
do that?
box biscuit tin. I'm loving the discussion on here. Tea is crucial to life. Correct.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Tea is
Although
life.
I am aware if anyone from here is not English, then what we've just done is the stereotype. Yes, when English people get together, they do sit around discussing tea.
Tea and the weather. And I don't know what the weather's like because I've not been outside in
Oh,
days.
it's lovely here now. It's rainy for a long time, but it's been lovely down here. But we're not allowed out,
Oh, really?
so you know, sunbathing in the garden is it.
Sort of ruins it, doesn't it? Well, I have to actually go and walk my dogs in a moment, so that'll give me a little break so I can mosey outside. It's not going to be an extensive walk, just a whip around the block, but it'll be something.
But yes.
Well, this has been amazing.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you all for coming.
honestly. And thank you everyone for turning up and commenting, everything like that. It's just wonderful. I'm really truly touched. Thank you.
Brilliant. I'll put out a little reminder of the rules of the giveaway that Pippa's running. And Pippa, you'll put it on your Facebook. I think you already have put it on your Facebook because I shared it earlier on.
Yeah, it's already up there. Yeah.
So share this video with all your friends and then pop over to Pippa's Facebook, Philippa Foxx, author, and leave a comment telling her what your favorite British word is. And 5 lucky winners are going to get a free copy of this book when it's released and when it has a title. Yeah, it will be signed by me and you. You're going to send it over to me so I can sign it for you before it's sent off to the winners.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for explaining all of that. My internet just cut out magically at that very moment.
I could tell that your internet was like glitching out, so I was like, I'll just run over everything once more just in case.
Now you're back to normal. I can see a beautiful face. I have to say as well, someone did mention it in the comments, you pull the best faces. You have so much expression when you're reading. And obviously I've heard loads of your work, but to see you read is a whole other experience. But yeah, mine went back for a few moments. So I'm just going to take the time
I'm going to be
say,
shy about it now.
But thank you, Will. Thank you everyone for coming online, and everyone go and enjoy your cups of tea now.
Lovely. Thank you so much, everybody. Much love. Stay safe. And yeah, see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.